Convertible Burt came up in Liberty City, Miami, right off 15th Avenue, where everything stayed live. That stretch of road wasn't just busy, it was legendary. Back in the 70s and 80s, that block was one of the hottest dope zones in the whole damn country. Every corner had motion, every day felt like a scene out of movie. The hustle, the tension, the fast money, it was all right there. That was the world Burt was born into. By the time he hit about 12, his family made a move into one of the roughest parts of Miami, the Graveyard Projects. That place had a rep. It wasn't no nickname for show. The Graveyard was gritty, dark, and unforgiving. Burt's moms held it down solo, raising 5 kids. 3 boys, 1 girl, and Burt the baby boy. She did the best she could, grinding every day to keep food on the table. Pops? He was in the picture here and there, but never solid. A rolling stone for real. He'd show up, dip out, pop back in, then vanish again. Burt ain't really start bonding with him until way later, around the time he got into the film game. They started to rebuild, trying to connect for real. But right when it seemed like they were getting somewhere, Burt got caught up in a Fed case out in Atlanta, got knocked, sent away. Not long after, his pops passed. That chapter ended before it ever really got started. Life in the Graveyard wasn't easy. It was a battleground. Every day was survival of the fittest. With crime, dope, and poverty all around him, Burt was forced to grow up quick. That environment raised him just as much as his mom's did. The streets weren't just outside, they were everywhere. And they moved fast. He got exposed to that life way before most kids even knew what it was. By the time he was 10 or 11, Burt was already out there playing lookout for the local hustlers, standing near the corners, keeping an eye out for the jump outs, warning the block when 12 was rolling through. It wasn't no big-time job, but it put him in position. It put his foot in the door. He soaked up game just by watching, learning how weight moved, how crews operated, who had juice, and who was just talking. That's also when he witnessed something that would change the whole city, the birth of the crack era. He watched it all unfold in real time. A dude named McBride brought it in from California, freebasing at first, then crack cocaine hit the block like a bomb. It started slow, but once it caught fire, it spread like wildfire. Burt saw people he knew chase that first high like it was salvation, then slowly lose everything trying to get it back. Families crumbled, folks turned into zombies, the whole hood shifted. He saw it tear through Liberty City like a plague. And right in the middle of all that chaos, Burt kept learning, kept moving. The game started wrapping its arms around him, and eventually it wasn't just him choosing the streets chose him too. After that, it didn't take long. Burt started off small, selling weed hand to hand, grinding his way up. He wasn't getting fronted weight, he worked for his. Came up the hard way. Every step was earned. No shortcuts, no skipping levels. And even while he was hustling, Burt stayed a standout in school. Over at Edison High, he made a name for himself as an all-American wrestler, straight talent. He was the kind of dude that had a real shot at getting out through sports. But all that changed one night at the Dade County Youth Fair. He got into it with another young dude over a chain. Things got heated, hands flew, and Burt pulled a pocket knife. During the scuffle, he ended up stabbing the other kid. That led to a manslaughter charge. He spent a few months in juvie, but beat the case on self-defense. Still, it left a mark. The system hit him hard. He got expelled from every Dade County school for a year. Ended up at MacArthur South, a school for kids the district didn't want. That year changed him. It made him colder, sharper, more alert. When he came back, he landed at American High, where his old wrestling coaches had transferred. But the world had shifted. He wasn't just a student athlete anymore. He was a young man who had taken a life. And that kind of thing don't leave you. Burt said it himself. He never wanted to take somebody's life, but in that moment, it was either him or dude. That kind of reality makes you see everything different. It hardens you. After high school, Burt had a scholarship lined up to wrestle at the University of Ohio. Full ride. A real shot at a different life. But the streets had him already, that fast money, that lifestyle, it pulled on him too strong. The decision wasn't easy, but it was real. He chose the hustle over the scholarship. One of the main influences in his come-up was a major player in Miami named Isaac Ike Hicks. Hicks ran a tight operation and had real status in the city. Burt started under him while still young, playing lookout, running small errands, soaking up knowledge. Hicks didn't just hand out game, he built soldiers. And Burt was one of them. That foundation led to something bigger, the birth of the Miami Boys. Burt was one of the originals. He and a few others took that Miami hustle on the road, state to state, setting up shop, moving weight, and everywhere they went, folks knew what time it was. Miami had its own energy, flashy, bold, calculated. The name stuck, and so did the legend. There was another crew at the time too, the Untouchables, but that wasn't Burt's clique. That was one of his little homies' thing. Burt stayed focused on his own lane. Him and the Miami Boys were part of a bigger shift happening in the city. This was the height of the cocaine cowboy era. Miami was ground zero for coke coming in from South America. Billions were flowing through the city while the feds scrambled to keep up. Technology wasn't where it is now, and law enforcement was behind the curve. Streets were flooded with more money than most folks could imagine. Burt said it plain. The pretty polished Miami folks see today, that skyline, them condos, that nightlife, all that was built off dope money, and those days, they long gone. But for a kid from Liberty City who came up in the graveyard and learned the rules from the gutter up, those memories ain't never fading. That era made him. Convertible Burt's rise in Miami's dope game kicked off with someone he knew and trusted, Isaac Ike Hicks. Hicks wasn't just a big homie. He was a certified heavyweight in the city, and he was the first one to throw Burt a real alley-oop. Burt was still just a youngin', still clocking into school during the day and running up plays at night, already working the edges of Hicks's operation. If Burt needed anything, money, muscle, connections, Ike could make it happen. He was plugged in deep, and that plug got Burt in the door. But as time passed and Burt soaked up more game, he didn't just stay a soldier, he started carving out his own path. More doors opened, bigger lanes appeared, and soon Burt was moving different. He leveled up from looking out for the homies to linking up with some of the city's top-tier plug talk. This was Miami in the 80s. The Colombians and Cubans were running the weight, and if you was making serious bread, you had to be tapped in with them. Burt was heavy. At one point, his circle reached as far as Pablo Escobar's crew. Yeah, that Escobar. He had ties to people who moved through Griselda Blanco's camp too, the Black Widow herself, part of the Medellin cartel that had Miami locked like Fort Knox. And according to Burt, if you were deep in the game back then, your product touched Medellin hands at some point, whether you knew it or not. It was all connected. As his paper got longer, so did the numbers. Burt said on his best days, he was clearing anywhere from 30 racks to 100,000 per day. Started off like a lot of cats, with a few spots, some trap houses, and hand-to-hand deals on the pavement. But Burt wasn't content being no corner boy. He scaled up, started moving big weight, kept his moves quiet and his presence low. He wasn't trying to shine loud, he wanted longevity. Flashiness got you followed, and that wasn't his style. Still, the game was grimy. Stick-up kids, jack boys, and wild crews like the Shower Posse was always out lurking, plotting on the next come-up. But Burt didn't move sloppy. He kept his circle tight, always a step ahead, always watching the field. If somebody tried to test him, it wasn't going to be sweet. He had hitters on deck, wild boys, down for the cause. You come for Burt, you better be ready for a real war. See, Burt understood early that in the dope game, protecting your stash wasn't just about locking your doors, it was about arming up. And when the crack era hit full throttle, the money tripled and the guns upgraded. Burt wasn't just holding a little .38, he was a straight-up gun enthusiast. Dude stayed strapped with everything from revolvers to full-auto AKs. He wasn't playing defense, he was ready for whatever. That same energy bled into the Miami boys. Wherever they set up shop, new cities, new blocks, they didn't come through quiet. Their name rang out. Sometimes that meant shootouts, and Burt didn't sugarcoat that. It was part of the life. Not ideal, but necessary in certain moments. Still, Burt knew violence wasn't good for business. Bodies brought heat, and heat brought the law. He preferred strategy, outthinking the competition, not outshooting them. But being on top came with hate, no matter how smart you moved. Jealousy followed success like a shadow. Burt got hit twice, once at a spot called The Village, caught one in the arm and thigh. Second time was on the eve of his birthday at a joint called Baja. Both times, he said, it wasn't even about beef, it was about envy. Women, jealousy, ego. But that's the price you pay when you're living fast and shining hard. Convertible Burt wasn't just another street dude chasing a dollar. He was a tactician, a boss, a survivor. Them close calls, they sharpened Burt up real quick. He kept it a buck. Back in the day, he didn't always peep the danger. The fast life had a grip on him, and when you're moving like that, sometimes the threats slide up without warning. First time he got hit, he was just 18, still damn near a kid. Second time came at 20. Those moments, they left a mark, not just on his body, but on his mentality. From then on, he moved different, more cautious, more strategic. But even with shots fired and haters lurking, Burt never hit pause. He just doubled down. He kept building his name, his brand, his legacy. See, Burt wasn't just pushing weight. He was a full-blown car fiend. Dude loved his whips like other folks loved their kids. At one point, he had 10 rides sitting pretty. We're talking Rolls Royces, stretched limos, custom 560s, candy-painted caddy lowriders, a Bronco, and even a Moss 7 XL back when it first hit the streets. But out of all of them, it was that Oldsmobile Delta 88 convertible that stamped him in the South Florida streets. That drop top was iconic. It wasn't just a car, it was a statement, a whole vibe. And it's what birthed the name Convertible Burt. He didn't just drive convertibles, he lived them, turned that love for drops into a whole lifestyle. Long before Southern car culture made it to the rap videos, Burt was blueprinting the game. As his money stacked, so did his reach. Miami was home base, but Burt had vision. He branched out to spots like Atlanta and other major money zones across the map. And when he touched down, he didn't come through sloppy. Nah, he brought order to the madness. While other cats were just trapping, Burt was setting up structure. He turned corner boys into soldiers, blocks into operations. It wasn't just hustle, it was enterprise. In a world full of chaos, Burt moved like a general. That's how he carved out a legacy that still gets mentioned with respect. Burt had about a 5-year stretch in the game, but in that window, he did damage. The Miami boys started planting flags in new cities, and his influence followed. He never sat down with no calculator, but it's clear, he touched millions. It was that type of fast life where the money flowed heavy, but it disappeared just as quick. He moved serious weight, hundreds of bricks at a time. We're talking 100, 200, sometimes even 500 keys in rotation. Burt didn't believe in running up tabs, so he kept his business tight and clean. But when you're playing at that level, losses come with it. That's the cost of moving in the major leagues. Everything moved at lightning speed, cash in, cash gone. He had money stashed all over, but he wasn't the type to sit back and count it up or pose for pics. Too hot, too risky. Outside the car game, his biggest vice was fashion and jewelry. Burt stayed dipped. Every event meant a new fit, and he wasn't cutting corners. That flash, that was part of the image. He grew up around bosses, so it came natural. At one point, he even brought out Iron Mike Tyson. Vegas trips, luxury shopping, everything top shelf. Convertible Burt didn't just live the fast life, he defined it. But Burt started feeling the shift. The streets had fed him for years, but deep down, he knew that fast money came with an expiration date. So he started plotting a new lane, one that was clean. He had a record label up and running, was stacking some property, and even opened up a little store. Moves were being made. He wasn't just talking about going legit. He was actually doing it, trying to pivot, trying to plant seeds that didn't come with handcuffs. But just when he started to make that transition, the feds pulled up and kicked the door in. By 1991, Burt already had 5 shorties to his name, real young, still babies. And while walking away from the hustle had crossed his mind more than once, the game had already sunk its teeth too deep. One deal flipped everything upside down. It wasn't even his play. He was just looking out for somebody, but that somebody set him up. Whole thing turned out to be a trap. 2 people flipped. One was somebody he broke bread with, the other just some dude he barely knew. To make it worse, one of them had been working with the Alphabet Boys from the jump. That one bad move set off a chain reaction. Before he knew it, Burt was jammed up in a 5-kilo case he didn't even own. But the feds, man, they were already on him, watching, waiting. Once they made their move, it was lights out. He fought it hard too, took it to trial, filed appeals, dumped over 100 bands on legal fees trying to wiggle free. But the feds don't play fair, they play for blood. With their conviction rate damn near flawless, the odds were stacked from the start. Still, Burt didn't fold. He didn't whine, didn't snitch, didn't start pointing fingers. He stood tall, kept his mouth shut, and took it like a man. As the system closed in and the lawyers started dancing around with plea deals, he didn't budge. Burt came up under real ones, and the game taught him early. Sometimes you gotta eat the loss so your people don't have to. They offered him 22 years if he cooperated, told him all he had to do was talk. He wasn't with it. Wasn't no shortcuts, no throwing folks under the bus to save your own skin, so he rolled the dice at trial, and when that guilty verdict dropped, it stung, but he didn't flinch. He already knew the feds had more lined up if he walked. Money laundering charges, properties in other people's names, a whole web ready to trap him again. They even threatened to come after the folks he cared about. That's when Burt made the call. He'd hold the weight, all of it, kept his circle safe, took his time like a soldier. In a world where most crumble under pressure, Convertible Burt stood firm and kept it solid all the way through. At just 26, Burt got slapped with 26 years and 10 months. One day in the feds for every single day he'd walked the earth. That hit with that kind of weight on his back, he never bent, never folded. Said straight up, a whole lot of these so-called heavy hitters in the game turned fed when the heat came, big names too. But snitching was never in Burt's DNA. He stood on principles, morals, dignity, and a solid code. That G code. He did his time like a soldier, posted up in some of the hardest federal joints in the country. Places where it wasn't just street cats, it was global hitters. Russian mobsters, Chinese triads, cartel bosses, Aryan Brotherhood dudes, real-life monsters, all in the mix. Burt did time in Terre Haute and a couple other high-pressure spots. He went through full-blown riots, lockdowns that stretched for months, and he even spent close to 3 years in the hole. One stretch was a 2-year straight lockdown, followed by a year in a step-down program just to be let back in general population. That's solitary with a capital S. No daylight, no movement, just time and concrete. But he made it through. 23 and a half years behind that wall, then another 10 months in a halfway house. That's damn near a full lifetime behind bars. When he finally touched back down in the free world in 2014, he was about 48 or 49. And the world? It had spun all the way forward. Big brick phones had turned into slick little iPhones. Beepers and payphones were relics. Now it was all Wi-Fi, apps, and FaceTime. But Burt, he didn't sweat it. He said adjusting wasn't a problem. He'd always been a step ahead anyway. Now, with that supervised release almost in the rear view, he's got his eyes locked on legit plays, films, fashion, business moves. He isn't looking back. From running up millions in the streets to doing a multi-decade bid, Burt came out sharper, stronger, and still solid. Convertible Burt might have lost years, but he never lost himself. He took that 5-year run and paid for it with a 27-year sentence. Went in with property, businesses, even his own tennis pros, and came out with none of it. Folks he trusted vanished when the smoke cleared. Even some blood relatives moved funny. But prison either breaks you or builds you. And in places like Terre Haute with some of the deadliest men in the country, including legends like Larry Hoover, Burt held his own. No cap. Respect isn't handed out in there. It's earned. And Burt, he earned it the hard way. Real recognized real, even in the darkest corners of the system. When Burt finally touched back down, the whole world felt like it flipped. People walking around like zombies, glued to their phones, bumping into each other like it's sweet out here. In the joint, that kind of space invasion could cost you your life. Respect isn't just a word, it's currency. Out here, folks act like that code doesn't even exist. That threw him off at first, but he peeped the shift quick and adapted. And for the young hustlers thinking they're gonna run up a few hundred keys and ride off into the sunset like it's a movie, Burt's story is the red flag, the caution tape. He isn't out here trying to make the game look pretty. He keeps it a buck. You think you're gonna push 500 bricks and chill on a yacht somewhere? Keep dreaming. Snitches come with the territory. And the coldest part, you don't even gotta open your mouth. Somebody else will do the talking for you. That's how they got him. Not his move, not his deal. Just doing a favor. And boom, set up. Even with all the pain, decades gone, a daughter he barely knows, family ties that never healed. Burt didn't let it kill his spirit. He bounced back and flipped the whole script. Reinvented himself. These days, he on a different type of grind, pushing his merch, stepping into the film world, moving on music, champagne ventures, clothing lines, the whole nine. His focus isn't survival anymore, it's legacy. So when he speaks from the scars. And for anybody out here trying to follow in his old footsteps, thinking that street clout is the goal, Burt got one thing to say. Don't follow who he was, follow who he is now. That same hustle that once fueled his empire, put that into something real, something legal. In today's world, you can build a brand from your phone, stack bread off content, merch drops, no need to risk your life or your family. Looking back, he'll tell you plain, the money, the whips, the women, they all fade. But the pain, that sticks. Missing out on his kids growing up, losing loved ones while doing time. You can't rewind that. That hurt doesn't go away. Convertible Burt's story isn't just some street legend memoir, it's a survival guide, one that says, yeah, you can win, but what's the cost? And he'll tell you straight, the real flex, the real power play, that's going legit. That's how bosses really move.